The space around them was filled with fire and broken metal. Commander Daniel Hayes stood at the window of his ship, the Starward Dawn, and looked at the destruction outside. The battle was over. The pirate ships had run away, but they had left nothing but death behind them. Daniel was a tall man with gray eyes and short brown hair. He was 42 years old and had been in space for most of his life. He had seen many battles. He had lost many friends, but he never got used to it. Every death still hurt him deep inside. "Sir," said Lieutenant Brooks from his station, "sensors are picking up a weak life sign from the warship." Daniel turned around. The warship was floating in pieces nearby. It had been attacked by the same pirates who had attacked them. They were not friends of humans, but they were not enemies either. They were a proud warrior species who kept to themselves. They stood 7 feet tall with silver blue skin and 4 eyes. Their bodies had natural bone armor on their shoulders and arms. They were strong. They were dangerous. And they did not like to ask anyone for help. "How many survivors?" Daniel asked. Checked his screen. "Just one, sir, and the life sign is very weak." Daniel thought about it. His ship was damaged. His crew was tired. They had their own wounded to take care of. The smart thing would be to leave the ship and continue on their way. No one would blame him for it. But Daniel was not the kind of man who left people behind to die. "Prepare a rescue team," he said. "I will go myself." Looked surprised. "Sir, are you sure? They are not known for being grateful. They might see rescue as an insult." "Then they can be insulted and alive," Daniel said. "Get me a shuttle." 20 minutes later, Daniel was flying toward the broken warship with 3 members of his crew. The shuttle moved carefully through the floating pieces of metal. Some of them were still on fire. Some of them had bodies frozen in the cold of space. Daniel tried not to look at them. They found an opening in the side of the ship and flew inside. The lights were dead. The air was thin. Daniel put on his helmet and stepped out of the shuttle with his team. Their flashlights cut through the darkness like white knives. "This way," said Sergeant Amy Cole, checking her scanner. "The life sign is coming from the lower deck." They moved through the dead ship. The walls were burned. The floors were covered with blood and broken weapons. Daniel saw the bodies of warriors everywhere. They had fought hard. They had died fighting. That was the way. But someone was still alive. They found her under a pile of twisted metal in what used to be the engine room. She was a female, tall and strong even in her broken state. Her silver blue skin was torn with deep wounds. Her natural bone armor was cracked and shattered. 3 of her 4 eyes were closed. The 4th one looked up at Daniel with a mix of pain and confusion. "Human," she whispered. Her voice was weak. "Why are you here?" Daniel knelt beside her. "To help you," he said simply. She tried to laugh, but it came out as a cough. Blood came from her mouth. "Do not need help from soft humans." "Maybe not," Daniel said, "but you are getting it anyway." He looked at his team. "Help me lift this metal off her." It took them 10 minutes to free her from the wreckage. She was badly hurt. Her left leg was broken in 2 places. She had burns on her chest and arms. She had lost a lot of blood, but she was alive. Amy Cole looked at Daniel with worry in her eyes. "Sir, can we even treat wounds? We do not know their biology." "We will learn," Daniel said. "Pick her up carefully." They carried her to the shuttle. She was heavy, much heavier than a human of the same size, but they managed. The female did not speak during the trip back to the Starward Dawn. Her one open eye just watched Daniel the whole time. He could not read her expression. He did not know if she was grateful or angry or something else entirely. When they arrived at the ship, Doctor was waiting for them in the medical bay. She was a small woman with black hair and sharp eyes. She was the best doctor Daniel had ever worked with. Said, looking at the wounded alien on the stretcher, "Daniel, I have never treated a before." "Then this will be a learning experience," Daniel said. Shook her head but got to work. She scanned the alien with every tool she had. She studied the readings. She compared them to the little information humans had about biology, and then she began to treat the wounds. The female drifted in and out of consciousness. Sometimes she would open her eyes and look around the room with fear. Sometimes she would whisper words in her own language that no one could understand. Once, she grabbed Daniel's arm with surprising strength and said, "My crew, my warriors, where are they?" Daniel did not know how to answer. He had seen the bodies on the ship. He knew the truth, but looking into her eyes, he could not say it. "Rest now," he said gently. "We will talk later." She seemed to understand. Her grip loosened, her eyes closed, and she fell back into the darkness of sleep. Daniel stood there for a long time, watching her. He thought about the weight of being the only survivor. He knew that weight well. He had carried it himself after the Battle of Titan, when his entire squad had been killed and he alone had walked away. The guilt never really left. It just became part of who you were. He made a decision in that moment. He would not let this warrior face that weight alone. He would help her, whether she wanted it or not. "Keep me updated on her condition," he told. "I want to know the moment she is stable enough to talk." Nodded. "Daniel, the crew is going to have questions. Not everyone will be happy about having her on board." "I know," Daniel said, "but she stays. That is my decision." He walked out of the medical bay and headed to the bridge. He had a ship to run and repairs to organize, but his mind kept going back to the wounded warrior lying in his medical bay. He did not know her name. He did not know her story, but he knew one thing for certain. He had saved her life. Now he had to help her find a reason to keep living it. 2 weeks passed on the Starward Dawn. The ship moved slowly through space toward the nearest friendly station for repairs. The crew worked hard to fix what they could. Life went on as it always did after a battle. But in the guest quarters on Deck 7, the warrior did not want to live. Her name was, Daniel had learned this from the few words she had spoken in her fever. Doctor had done excellent work healing her body. The broken leg was mended. The burns were treated. The wounds were closing, but refused to get better in the ways that mattered most. She would not eat. The trays of food that the crew brought her sat untouched until they were taken away. She would not speak to anyone except to tell them to leave her alone. She sat on her bed and stared at the wall with all 4 of her eyes empty and dead. Came to Daniel on the 3rd day with worry on her face. "Her body is healing," said, "but she is giving up. She does not want to live, Daniel. I can see it in everything she does, or does not do." Daniel nodded slowly. He had seen this before. After the Battle of Titan, when he was the only one left from his squad, he had felt the same emptiness, the same wish for darkness. It had taken him years to climb out of that hole. "I will talk to her," he said. He went to her quarters that evening. She was sitting exactly where she always sat, on the edge of her bed, facing the gray wall. She did not look at him when he entered. "Leave me, human," she said. Her voice was flat and cold. Daniel did not leave. He pulled a chair from the corner and sat down near her, not too close. He did not want to seem threatening, but close enough to talk. "My name is Daniel," he said. "I thought you should know that." She did not respond. "I brought you some food," he continued, placing a tray on the small table beside her bed. "I know it is not what you eat on your world, but it is good. You should try it." Still nothing. Daniel sat in silence for a while. He was not in a hurry. He had learned long ago that some wounds needed time and patience, not quick fixes. "I know what you are feeling," he said finally. "The weight of being the only one left, the shame of surviving when everyone else died. I know that feeling very well." For the first time moved. Her head turned slightly toward him. One of her 4 eyes focused on his face. "You know nothing, little human," she said. "You are soft. Your species is weak. You do not understand what it means to be a warrior." "Maybe," Daniel agreed. "But I understand what it means to lose everyone you care about. I understand the voice in your head that tells you that you should have died with them, that living is a betrayal." Was quiet for a long moment. Then she spoke, her voice a little less cold than before. "Among my people, survival when your unit falls is the greatest shame. It means you were not strong enough to die with honor. It means you failed them." Daniel nodded. "On Earth, we have a different view. We believe that the survivor has a duty, a responsibility to carry the memory of the fallen, to live for them because they cannot live for themselves." That is a strange way to think. Perhaps, but it helped me, after the Battle of Titan. Now turned fully toward him. All four of her eyes studied his face with new interest. "You have lost warriors under your command." "All of them," Daniel said. "Every single one. I was the only survivor of a squad of 12. For a long time I wanted to die. I thought about it every day. But then I realized that dying would not bring them back. It would only mean that their sacrifice was wasted. So I chose to live, to honor them by becoming the best commander I could be." Was silent. Daniel could see that she was thinking about his words. He did not push her. He simply sat there and waited. After a few minutes, he stood up. "The food will get cold," he said, pointing to the tray. "Try to eat something. I will come back tomorrow." He came back the next day, and the day after that, and the day after that. At first, ignored him. She sat in her usual place and stared at the wall, but Daniel kept coming. He brought food. He talked to her about Earth, about the blue oceans and the green forests and the cities that sparkled at night. He told her about his childhood in a small town in the mountains. He told her about his first time in space, how scared and excited he had been. Slowly, very slowly, began to respond. At first it was just small things, a nod of her head, a grunt of acknowledgement, but then she started asking questions. "Your planet has water falling from the sky," she asked one evening, her voice filled with disbelief. "We call it rain," Daniel said with a smile. "It happens all the time, sometimes for days without stopping." "My world is desert," said. "Water is precious there. We fight for it, kill for it. The idea of water falling from the sky freely is strange to me. Maybe one day you can visit Earth and see it for yourself." She made a sound that might have been a laugh. "A walking on Earth, your people would run in fear." "Some might," Daniel admitted. "But not all. Humans are curious. We like to meet new species, to learn about them. Even species that could kill you with one hand." "Especially those," Daniel said. "We are strange like that." On the 7th day of his visits, Daniel arrived to find the food tray from the previous night empty. Every bite had been eaten. He felt a wave of relief wash over him. "The meat was too soft," said without looking at him, "but the flavor was acceptable. I will ask the kitchen to cook it less next time." "That would be appreciated." It was a small victory, but it was a victory. The days continued to pass, grew stronger. She began to walk around her quarters. Then she began to walk in the corridors, always late at night when the crew was mostly asleep. The few crew members who saw her stepped aside quickly, their eyes wide with fear. She ignored them. But she did not ignore Daniel. Their conversations grew longer, began to share pieces of her own story. She told him about her training as a warrior from the age of 5. She told him about the battles she had fought and the enemies she had killed. She told him about her crew, the warriors who had died on the ship where Daniel had found her. "Eth was my second in command," she said one night, her voice heavy with grief. "We fought together for 15 years. He was like a brother to me. When the pirates attacked, he stood in front of me and took the blast that was meant for my heart. He died in my arms." Daniel listened without interrupting. He knew that she needed to speak these things out loud. She needed someone to hear them. "I wanted to die with him," continued. "I tried. I threw myself at the enemy again and again. But they would not kill me. They just laughed and left me there to suffer, to be the only one alive in a ship full of dead friends." She looked at Daniel with something new in her 4 eyes, something that looked almost like warmth. And then you came, a soft little human who should have left me to my fate, but you did not. No, Daniel said, I did not. Why? He thought about the question for a long moment before answering. Because I saw myself in you, he said finally. I saw someone who was broken and lost and ready to give up, and I remembered what it felt like to be that person. I remembered wishing that someone would help me, even when I said I did not want help. Stared at him. In that moment, something changed between them. The wall she had built around herself cracked, not completely, but enough. You are a strange human, Daniel Hayes, she said softly. I have been told that before. It was not an insult. I did not take it as one. They sat together in comfortable silence as the stars moved slowly past the window, and for the first time since her rescue, did not look like she wanted to die. She looked like she might want to live. The attack came without warning. Daniel was on the bridge, reviewing repair reports with Lieutenant Brooks when the alarm started screaming. Red lights flashed everywhere. The ship shook hard, and Daniel grabbed the edge of his chair to keep from falling. Report, he shouted. His fingers flew across his console. His face went pale. 3 ships just dropped out of hyperspace, sir. They are firing on us. Another blast hit the starward dawn. The lights flickered. Somewhere in the distance, Daniel heard metal tearing. Pirates? Daniel asked. Yes, sir. Same markings as the ones who attacked us before. They must have been tracking us. Daniel's jaw tightened. They had barely survived the last fight. The ship was still damaged. Many of their weapons were offline, and now the enemy had come back to finish the job. All hands to battle stations, Daniel commanded through the ship's communication system. This is not a drill. We are under attack. Everyone to your positions now. The bridge crew moved fast. They had trained for this. They knew what to do, but Daniel could see the fear in their eyes. They knew the odds were against them. Return fire, Daniel ordered. Target the lead ship. Get our shields up as high as they can go. The Starward Dawn was a good ship with a brave crew. They fought hard. Their weapons blazed into the darkness of space, hitting one of the pirate ships and setting it on fire. But the pirates had more guns, more ships, more everything, and they were not holding back. A massive blast hit the lower decks. The ship shook so hard that people were thrown from their seats. On the bridge, a console exploded in a shower of sparks. One of the crew members screamed. Hull breach on deck 4, someone shouted. We are losing atmosphere. Seal it off, Daniel ordered. Emergency protocols now. But the bad news kept coming. The engine room was on fire. The medical bay had lost power, and sensors were showing that one of the pirate ships had launched boarding pods. They are coming aboard, said, his voice shaking. At least 20 of them, maybe more. Daniel grabbed his weapon from under his chair. He had hoped it would not come to this, but it had. Security teams to the breach points, he said. I want every corridor covered. They do not take this ship. He was about to leave the bridge to join the fight when the main door opened. Daniel turned, expecting to see one of his crew. Instead, he saw. She stood there like a warrior from an old story. Her silver-blue skin seemed to glow in the red emergency lights. Her 4 eyes burned with a fire that Daniel had never seen before. She was wearing the armor she had arrived in, now repaired as much as the crew could manage. In her hands, she held a weapon taken from a fallen security officer. Daniel said, You should stay in your quarters. You are not fully healed. She walked past him without stopping. I am healed enough. Where are the enemies? They boarded through deck 3. But you do not have to fight. This is not your battle. Turned to look at him. There was something fierce and beautiful in her expression. You saved my life, she said. You gave me a reason to live when I had none. Now it is my turn to repay that debt. Show me the enemy, Daniel Hayes. There was no time to argue. Another explosion rocked the ship. They could hear weapons firing somewhere below. "Follow me," Daniel said. They ran through the corridors together, Daniel and the warrior. The ship was chaos around them. Crew members rushed past, carrying weapons or medical supplies or fire equipment. The lights kept flickering. The air was thick with smoke. They found the first group of pirates on Deck 3, near the cargo bay. There were 6 of them, rough-looking men in dirty armor, shooting at a small group of Daniel's security team who were pinned down behind some crates. Did not hesitate. She moved forward with the speed and grace of a hunting cat. Before the pirates knew what was happening, she was among them. Her weapon fired once, twice, 3 times. Pirates fell. One of them tried to swing at her with a blade, but she caught his arm and threw him into the wall with enough force to crack the metal. He did not get up. In less than a minute, all 6 pirates were down. Daniel's security team stared at her with wide eyes. They had heard about the warrior on the ship, but they had never seen her fight. "Close your mouths and keep moving," said. "There are more enemies." They pushed forward through the ship. Everywhere they went, they found fighting. The pirates had spread out, trying to take control of important areas, but Daniel's crew was fighting back with everything they had. And wherever the fighting was thickest was there. She fought like nothing Daniel had ever seen. She was fast, faster than any human could be. She was strong enough to bend metal with her bare hands. She seemed to know where the enemy would be before they appeared, and she showed no mercy. Pirate after pirate fell before her. Some tried to run when they saw her coming, but running only made them easier targets. She cut through them like fire through dry grass. But it was not enough. The pirates kept coming. For everyone they killed, 2 more seemed to appear, and the ship was falling apart around them. More hull breaches, more fires, more systems failing. They made their way to the bridge, fighting through corridors filled with smoke and bodies. When they arrived, they found Brooks and a handful of crew members holding the entrance against a group of 8 pirates. Commander shouted with relief. They almost got through. Daniel raised his weapon and joined the fight, was right beside him. Together with the crew, they pushed the pirates back, killing half of them and sending the rest running. But as Daniel stepped forward to secure the corridor, he saw something that made his heart stop. A young crew member named Park, barely 20 years old, was trying to get up from behind a fallen beam. He had been injured in the fighting, and one of the pirates, wounded but alive, was raising his weapon to shoot the boy. Daniel did not think, he just moved. He threw himself in front of, pushing the young man down and putting his own body between and the pirate. He felt the heat of the plasma blast hit his side like a wall of fire. Pain exploded through his body, worse than anything he had ever felt. He heard screaming. He was not sure if it was his own voice or someone else's. Then was there. She killed the pirate with 1 shot and caught Daniel before he hit the ground. Her strong arms held him tight. Her face was above his, her 4 eyes filled with something that looked like fear. "Daniel," she shouted, "stay with me." He tried to speak, but the words would not come. The world was getting dark at the edges. He could feel his blood, warm and wet, spreading across the deck. "Get him to medical," commanded. Her voice shook in a way it never had before. "Now move." Daniel felt hands lifting him. He felt the movement as they carried him through the ship. He heard voices around him, urgent and afraid, but everything was fading away. The last thing he saw before the darkness took him was face, her 4 eyes fixed on him, her hand gripping his as if she could hold him in this world by strength alone. The last thing he heard was her voice, rough with emotion. "Do not die, human. I forbid you to die." Then there was nothing but silence and black. The medical bay was quiet except for the soft beeping of machines. The lights had been dimmed to save power. The battle was over. The pirates had retreated, leaving one of their ships destroyed and the other 2 badly damaged. The Starboard Dawn had survived, but just barely. And Commander Daniel Hayes was dying. Doctor had worked on him for 6 hours straight. The plasma blast had burned through his side, damaging organs that she barely knew how to fix. She had used every tool, every medicine, every bit of knowledge she had. And still, his heart kept trying to stop. "I have done everything I can," said, her voice tired and heavy. "Now we wait. His body has to fight. I cannot fight for him." She looked at the corner of the medical bay where stood. The warrior had not moved since they brought Daniel in. Her silver-blue skin was covered in blood, some of it hers, most of it belonging to the pirates she had killed. Her armor was dented and scratched, but she refused to leave. She refused to let anyone clean her wounds. She refused everything except the right to stay in that room. "You should rest," said gently. "I will call you if anything changes." Did not look at her. Her 4 eyes were fixed on Daniel's still form on the medical bed. "I will stay," she said. Knew better than to argue with a warrior. She nodded and went to check on the other wounded crew members in the next room. Hours passed. The ship moved slowly through space, its damaged engines doing their best. Crew members came and went, checking on their commander. Some of them looked at with confusion. Some looked at her with respect. She ignored them all. She only watched Daniel. Ensign Park came in during the 2nd hour. He was the young man that Daniel had saved, the one he had thrown himself in front of to block the plasma blast. His face was pale with guilt. His hands were shaking. "It should have been me," said, his voice breaking. "He should not have done that. I am nobody. He is the commander. He is important." Finally looked away from Daniel. She studied the young human with her 4 eyes. He was so young, so scared, so full of shame that he did not deserve. "What is your name?" she asked. "Park." "Listen to me, Park. Your commander did not save you because he thinks you are less important than him. He saved you because that is who he is. He protects the people under his care. That is his nature. You should not feel shame for being protected. You should feel honored." Looked at her with wet eyes. "But if he dies?" "Then you will live in a way that honors his sacrifice. You will become the kind of person worth saving. That is how you repay a debt like this. Not with guilt, with growth." Stood there for a long moment, looking at the alien warrior who had just given him more wisdom than he expected. Then he nodded slowly. "I understand," he said. "Thank you." He left the medical bay, returned her eyes to Daniel. The night cycle came and the lights dimmed even more. Most of the crew went to sleep, exhausted from the battle. The ship became quiet. In the medical bay, only and Daniel remained. Came back once to check on Daniel. His vital signs were weak but stable. He was fighting, she said. Whether he would win the fight, she did not know. After left finally moved from her corner. She walked slowly to Daniel's bedside and looked down at him. He seemed so small lying there, so fragile, so human. She remembered the first time she had seen him, standing in the wreckage of her ship with a flashlight in his hand and no fear in his eyes. She had thought he was foolish, weak. What kind of creature walked into danger to save someone who was not of their own kind? But now she understood. Kindness was not weakness. Compassion was not foolishness. Daniel Hayes was proof of that. He was the bravest warrior she had ever known, not because he was strong or fast or deadly, but because he cared. He cared about people he had never met. He cared about an alien warrior who had wanted to die. He cared so much that he threw himself in front of a weapon to save a boy he barely knew. That kind of courage was rare, even among the. Knelt beside the bed. It was not something did. Kneeling was a sign of submission, of surrender, of accepting that someone was greater than you. Among her people, warriors never knelt except before the High Council. But she knelt now. "Daniel Hayes," she said softly, speaking in her own language because the words in English did not feel strong enough. "You found me in the dark and brought me back to the light. You showed me that survival is not shame. You gave me something to live for when I had nothing." She reached out and took his hand. His skin was warm against her cool fingers. I have fought 100 battles. I have killed more enemies than I can count. I have never feared death, but I fear this. I fear losing you. I fear waking up in a universe where you do not exist." Tears formed in her 4 eyes. She did not wipe them away. "Do not leave me, human," she whispered. "Stay in this world. Fight for your life the way you fought for mine. I will be here when you wake. I will guard your door. I will protect you from every threat until my last breath. This I swear on the blood of my fallen kin." She stayed there, kneeling beside his bed, holding his hand until her legs went numb and her back ached with pain. She did not care. She would not move. The first night passed, then the second. Did not sleep. She barely ate. When forced food into her hands, she ate it without tasting it and returned to her vigil immediately. The crew began to whisper. They had never seen anything like this. The cold, proud warrior who had terrified them all was kneeling beside their commander like a guardian spirit. She spoke to no one. She looked at nothing except Daniel's face. On the third night, something happened. Daniel's hand moved. It was small, just a tiny twitch of his fingers, but felt it. Her eyes went wide. She leaned closer. "Daniel," she whispered, "can you hear me?" His fingers moved again, pressing weakly against her hand. Felt something break inside her chest, not in a bad way, in a way that made room for something new, something warm. "Fight," she said, her voice fierce and gentle at the same time. "You are close. Keep fighting. I am here. I am not leaving." She stayed with him through the rest of the night, watching every small movement, every flutter of his eyelids, every slight change in his breathing. And as the morning cycle came and the lights slowly brightened, she saw his eyes begin to open. He was coming back. Rushed in when she heard the machines beeping differently. She checked Daniel's vital signs, and a smile broke across her tired face. "He is stable," she said. "He is going to make it." Closed her eyes and let out a breath she felt like she had been holding for days. Her body was exhausted. Her mind was foggy, but none of that mattered. Daniel Hayes was alive. And she had kept her promise to guard him. Now she would make him a new promise, one that would bind them together across all the stars in the sky, one that would last until the end of time. But first, she would wait for him to wake up properly. She had things to tell him. Important things. Daniel opened his eyes on the 5th day. The first thing he saw was a gray ceiling. The second thing he saw was bright lights that made his head hurt. The third thing he saw was standing at the foot of his bed, looking down at him with all 4 of her eyes. She looked terrible. Her silver blue skin was pale, almost gray. Her eyes were red and tired. She had not changed her clothes since the battle. She looked like she had not slept in a week. She was the most beautiful thing Daniel had ever seen. "You are awake," said. Her voice was rough, like she had not used it in a long time. Daniel tried to speak, but his throat was too dry. Moved quickly, pouring water from a nearby container and lifting his head gently so he could drink. The water was cool and wonderful. "How long?" Daniel managed to ask. 5 days. The doctor said you almost died 3 times. Your heart kept stopping, but you fought. You kept coming back." Daniel remembered pieces of the battle. The alarms, the pirates park on the ground, the heat of the plasma blast, and then darkness. "The ship," he asked. "The crew." "The ship is damaged but flying. The crew is mostly alive. 22 wounded, 7 dead." Paused. "The pirates retreated. They will not be coming back." "And you?" Looked away. It was strange to see her avoiding his eyes. "I am here," she said simply. Daniel was too weak to push for more. But he noticed how tired she looked. He noticed how she stood as if her legs were about to give out. He noticed the way she kept watching him, as if she was afraid he would disappear if she looked away. He reached out his hand toward her. It took all his strength just to lift it from the bed. Looked at his hand for a long moment. Then she stepped forward and took it. Her fingers were cool and strong around his. "Rest," she said. "We will talk when you are stronger." Daniel closed his eyes. With her hand in his, he felt safe. He felt like everything was going to be okay. He slept. When he woke again, it was night. The medical bay was dark and quiet. Was sitting in a chair beside his bed, her head down, her eyes closed. She was finally sleeping. Daniel watched her for a while. He thought about everything that had happened since he found her on that broken ship. He thought about their long conversations. He thought about the way she had fought beside him during the battle. He thought about her hand in his just before he fell into darkness. Something had changed between them. He was not sure what to call it, but it was there, real and powerful. Doctor came in quietly to check on him. She smiled when she saw he was awake. "How do you feel?" she asked softly, trying not to wake. "Like I was shot with a plasma cannon," Daniel said. Laughed quietly. "That is because you were. You are very lucky to be alive, Daniel. If the blast had been a few inches to the left, it would have hit your heart." "Lucky," Daniel repeated. He looked at sleeping in the chair. "Or maybe I had a guardian angel." Followed his gaze. "She refused to leave your side for 5 days. I tried to make her rest, make her eat, make her do anything except stand there and watch you. She ignored me every time. I have never seen her act that way. I do not think anyone has." Daniel felt something warm spread through his chest. It was not pain. It was something else entirely. "When she wakes up," he said, "can you give us some time alone? There are things I need to say to her." Nodded and left quietly. An hour later woke up. She jerked awake suddenly, her 4 eyes wide with alarm. Then she saw Daniel watching her, and her whole body relaxed. "You were sleeping," Daniel said. "You needed it." Looked embarrassed, which was strange to see on a warrior who had killed dozens of pirates without blinking. "I did not mean to. I was supposed to be watching over you." "You watched over me for 5 days. I think you earned a rest." Stood up and moved to his bedside. She looked down at him with an expression he could not quite read. "Daniel Hayes," she said, "there is something I need to tell you." "I am listening." She took a deep breath. When she spoke, her voice was steady but filled with emotion. "When you found me, I was ready to die. I wanted to die. I believed that living was a shame because my crew was dead and I was not. You saved my life, but more than that, you saved my spirit. You showed me that survival is not something to be ashamed of. You gave me a reason to live again." She knelt beside his bed, just as she had done during his long sleep. Her 4 eyes shimmered with tears that she did not try to hide. "During the battle when you fell, I felt something I have never felt before. Fear, true fear, not fear of death but fear of losing you. I realized then that you had become more important to me than my own life. You had become my purpose." Daniel's heart was beating fast. He reached out and placed his hand on her arm. "Let me finish," she said. "Among my people there is an ancient oath. It is called the Eth, the life bond. It is a promise between 2 warriors who have bled together, who have saved each other's lives. It is the most sacred oath it can make. It means that we are bound to each other until death, that I will protect you with all my strength, fight beside you in every battle, and never leave your side as long as I draw breath." She looked into his eyes. "I offer you this bond, Daniel Hayes. I will be your shield, your blade, your protector until my final breath, if you will accept me." The medical bay was completely silent. Daniel could hear his own heartbeat in his ears. He could feel the weight of what she was offering. This was not a small thing. This was everything. He thought about his life. He thought about the loneliness he had carried since Titan. He thought about the nights he had spent alone, wondering if he would ever find someone who truly understood him. And he thought about this proud warrior who had walked into his life and changed everything. "I accept," he said. "With all my heart I accept." His hand closed around his. Her grip was firm and warm and full of promise. "Then you will never face the darkness alone again, Daniel Hayes. Wherever you go, I go. Whatever you fight, I fight. This I swear on the honor of my ancestors and the blood of my fallen kin." She raised his hand to her forehead, a gesture of deepest respect and devotion. "You are my Eth now, my life bond, my human." Daniel smiled, feeling tears in his own eyes. "And you are mine," he said, "my warrior, my protector, my friend." They stayed like that for a long time, hands joined, looking at each other across the distance between their worlds. Two beings from different species, different cultures, different stars. Yet somehow they had found each other. In the days that followed, word spread through the ship and then beyond. The story of the human commander and the warrior traveled from ship to ship, station to station, world to world. It became a legend that people told in bars and meeting halls across the Orion sector. They said that Commander Daniel Hayes had a guardian like no other. They said that the warrior could kill a dozen enemies before they could blink. They said that together, the human and the alien were unstoppable. But what the stories often missed was the truth at the heart of the legend. It was not about strength or speed or combat skill. It was about something simpler and more powerful. It was about two broken souls who found each other in the darkness. It was about kindness given without expectation. It was about love that crossed the stars. Daniel and served together for many years after that. They faced many battles, many dangers, many enemies, and through it all they were never apart. Where one went, the other followed. Where one fought, the other stood beside them. And when the stories were told about them, they always ended the same way. To harm Daniel Hayes, you would first have to go through. And no one ever succeeded. Not a single one. Because she had made a promise. And she intended to keep it for the rest of her life.